But Brandon, let's move on into our next topic. And before we get into 6 through 15 of our big board, make sure to go on to Apple Podcasts and iTunes and rate the Primetime Podcast. Every 5-star rating really helps us get into more ears, or as I like to call them, ear holes, Brandon.
Ear holes.
Of
ear
people.
Holes, yes.
It gets the podcast in front of more people, gives us more exposure, which is great because then we build this family of real MVPs. So make sure you can go over to Apple Podcasts and iTunes and give us that beautiful 5-star rating. But Brandon, we are going on into 6 through 15 of our big board, and I'm going to pass it on to you. Give us your players in this region, starting at number 15.
Well, gracias, Ricky. At 15, Jawan Taylor, the offensive tackle from Florida. At 14, Jonah Williams, the offensive tackle from Alabama. At 13, Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle from Clemson. At 12, the Michigan linebacker Devin Bush. At 11, Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, the Ohio State University. At 10, Grady Williams, the cornerback from LSU. At 9, Clellan Farrell, the defensive end from Clemson. At 8, Drew Locke, Missouri quarterback. At 7, Rashawn Gary, the defensive end from Michigan. And at 6, Montez Sweat, the defensive end from Mississippi State.
And then going on into mine at number 15, DK Metcalf, the wide receiver from Ole Miss. Then at number 14, Christian Wilkins, the defensive end from the Clemson Tigers. Then at 13, his teammate, Clellan Farrell, the defensive end from the Clemson Tigers. Then at 12, Jawan Taylor from Florida. Is that what you called it, Brandon?
Florida.
Welcome to my house. The offensive tackle is at 12. Then at 11, Ed Oliver, the defensive end from Houston. Number 10, Dwayne Haskins, the quarterback from the Ohio State University. Number 9, Drew Locke, quarterback from Mizzou. Then at 8, Rashawn Gary, the defensive end from Michigan. I think that's the only time I've gotten his name right throughout the entire draft process. Better late than never to get it right on the very last big board. And then at 7, Greedy Williams, the cornerback from LSU. And then at number 6, Montez Sweat, or as Mark likes to call him, Too Sweet, Martez Sweet, defensive end from Mississippi State. So the first guy, we got 2 guys we're going to talk about in this range. The first of which, Mark and I talked about this on the Onside Kick. If you have not listened to it, go check it out. I will throw it above Brandon and I's head to come out. But there is news, Brandon, that Dwayne Haskins, this is from Yahoo Sports had it, to 24/7 Sports had it as well. There are rumors that Dwayne Haskins' stock is sliding before the NFL draft. And this is a tweet from NFL draft analyst Lance Zuerlein. And it says this: after speaking with a few different teams, I definitely get the feeling that Dwayne Haskins' draft stock has more media created is more media created than team driven. I see Haskins falling on draft day, and I think the chances are increasing that he is not the second quarterback off the board. What is your thoughts about this? Because on mine, he's no longer the second quarterback off the board. Drew Locke is my second quarterback off the board. What do you think about this?
Well, I think over the last couple of times that we've had an NFL topic, and when that NFL topic has been quarterbacks,
It's Drew Locke.
I think it's been Drew Locke is being the number 2 quarterback. And I think it's, Drew Locke for a while. I mean, I think he was there. He was around, but we didn't talk about him as highly as we did the other 2. But lately, Drew Locke has started to come up big. His arm is extremely good. He's got some great intangibles. He's a good quarterback. Dwayne Haskins, I'm not exactly sure why he has started to slip, because he's a great quarterback as well. He's got a good arm. He gets the ball down the field. If anything, are people worried that he hasn't had enough college games under his belt, that they haven't been able to see him enough? Is that the worry? And if that's the worry, I would say Mitch Trubisky. People weren't able to see him enough, and he led the Bears to a 12-4 record last year.
You and Mark, same thing. Mark said the same thing.
Well, because I mean, I want to go to bat for those guys because it's one of those quote unquote negatives, but it's not always a negative. It doesn't always mean that you haven't seen everything. I think that sometimes, yes, maybe they have played too few games, and once they get to the NFL, it's completely different, but or a bigger adjustment. But also for some guys, is they were good in those few amount of games in their one season. They're going to be good going to the NFL. I'm very interested in what you mentioned off of what Zuerlein was saying there, of why though. Why? He says it's media created. The hype for him is more media created than maybe team driven. But my question would be, why does he say that? Why does he think that? And why would Haskins be falling? And if falling, how far?
I'll tell you why. And I get this vibe from the tweet is, like he said, after talking to a few different teams, what I think was going on, and this is just the story. Think about the storyline for us through these big boards. Early on, it was Justin Herbert and Dwayne Haskins. Then Herbert says, I'm going to go back to school. All we are left with is Dwayne Haskins. Kyler Murray's kind of there at the end of the year, but let's be honest. You and I both, like, when Dave was that weird guy, like, Dave's that weird guy who came in during a fast break and was like, hey, Kyler Murray could go number one. And I went, you're crazy. He's a baseball player. Like, he's going to play baseball. He ain't going to play football. He'd be smarter to play baseball. I still think it's true. He'd be smarter to go play baseball. But then he comes out. Like, when Kyler Murray came out, it then created, for the first time in a long time, a discussion at quarterback. And I think early on, since the time Herbert said he's going back to school, and when Kyler Murray said, I'm going to come to football and screw baseball, so much time was in between that the media kind of already locked in on Dwayne Haskins. Like, to the fact that when Kyler Murray passed him up to be the number one quarterback, people weren't talking about Kyler Murray to the Giants. They had comments from Cliff Kingsbury, and now we're talking about him to the Cardinals. So I think because of that, we just kind of automatically locked Dwayne Haskins in as that top quarterback until after Kyler Murray passed him. Then Dwayne Haskins went down to 2. And I think this slide is not anything to do with what's wrong with Dwayne Haskins. I just think it's a lot of teams are looking at Drew Locke. You've got the Raiders, got to work him out at the Senior Bowl and got to work with him at the Senior Bowl. They liked what they saw. Teams that have worked out Drew Locke, all I am hearing from anywhere I look at, good things about Drew Locke. Drew Locke this, Drew Locke that. He's really good here. He could be something special. And I think it's just Drew Locke and his stock. His stock is rising to where now he is becoming the second overall quarterback ahead of Dwayne Haskins. But number 2, I think it's also a question of the teams that we talked about earlier. The Giants. It's not a lock that they go a quarterback at number 6. You got Jacksonville. They don't need a quarterback at 7 anymore. They got Nick Foles. You've got Buffalo. They don't need a quarterback. They got Josh Allen. You've got Denver. They might go quarterback, but they don't need one anymore. They've got Joe Flacco, so that they, like, some of these teams in the top 10 could end up going defense or wide receiver or a different need and kicking that quarterback can down the road. And the combination of that is what's making Dwayne Haskins fall.
I think that makes sense. I think that makes a lot of sense. Again, I think
But if he's there at 11, Cincinnati should just snatch him up.
Well, but see, that's also the thing, though, is that I don't want to talk as though, like, he's fallen on my draft board a little bit, my big board a little bit, but I still think he's going to be taken in the first round. Yeah. He's still a first round quarterback. He's not a second round quarterback. If he went to the second round, oh my gosh, that's that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
It won't happen.
And that's the thing I said on the onside kick. He is not a Geno Smith type of player. He's not going to be that player we expected to go early and falls all the way to day 2. Like, he's not going to be that one where we wonder, oh, is Dwayne Haskins going to come back for the second day of the draft? No. I think he doesn't get past 11. If he's there at 11, I think the Bengals snatch him up. What I really think is that if 6 rolls around and the Giants don't take them or take him, somebody is trading up with 7, 8, 9, or 10 to take Dwayne Haskins. Somebody is. If not, Denver might even take him. I don't think he gets past 11. I think if he slides, it's that 7 to 11 range, and there could be a team that trades up to get him if the Giants don't take him at 6.
I mean, I think you're right, and I think that a team would be crazy not to do that if he was, again, still available there. But I'm still not necessarily convinced that the Giants won't take him. I mean,
if you were the Giants, what would you do at 6? Because there are, and Mark and I have also talked about this, which I'll have pop above our heads too. There have even, and of course, smokescreen season. Just put the smoke bomb out and it's everything to get people off their tracks. There's even news that the Giants could like Daniel Jones enough to take him at 17 to where they wouldn't need a quarterback at 6. And they can go with a defensive player like a Devin White, like a, let's say, Greedy Williams, somebody to help out their defense, rather than going with a quarterback at number 6. And I love the face you gave me when I mentioned Daniel Jones at 17, because I don't think I would even do that.
No, gosh, no. Absolutely not. If I was the Giants, probably at 8.
6.
Sorry, 6. I would go with Drew Locke. I would.
With me, I would probably, if I'm going quarterback, I would go with Drew Locke. If I'm not going quarterback, I would either go.
Then you're not going with Drew Locke then.
I wouldn't. So I'm either going Drew Locke. There's 3 guys I'm picking: Drew Locke, Devin White, the best defensive end off the board. One of those 3 guys. Because you need to bolster up that defense. Devin White could be the inside linebacker that they look for. They need some pass rushers, especially with the guys that they've had left, especially Olivier Vernon, who's now wearing the orange and brown of Cleveland, the very sad orange and brown usually, but people are happy now in Cleveland for once in a long time. But also you do need that quarterback, and when do you go and get that? Is that at 17? Is that at 6? We'll just have to wait and see what Gettleman and the Giants want to do. I want to ask you about another player, though, and this one confuses the hell out of me because, Brandon, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to look it up here because I have to get this exactly correct. Let's see, ESPN mock draft. So I was looking at a mock draft that both Todd McShay and Mel Kiper did, where they kind of dueling picks went and did all of them for the first round. Greedy Williams, they both had, I believe one of them had him to the Chiefs. The other one had him just above that. In your mind, what happens with Greedy Williams, and would you be afraid to take him in the top 10?
So with Greedy Williams, he's a great player. He's a disruptive cornerback. I remember watching him a couple of times this past year, and he's good. I mean, he is really good, and he is always physical, and that's outstanding. Perfect cornerback, pardon me. But one thing is that he may need to get bigger. He's probably going to have to add more muscle. Otherwise, big, strong wide receivers might be able to win more of the battles than he's able to. Mm-hmm. And that's I think that's probably the biggest negative in terms of Greedy Williams, because Greedy is a smooth player. He's very good. Like I said, he's got good speed. He's got great length, but he's got to get bigger. He's got to get more muscle added onto his body because, again, physical for sure. physical in college, that's fine. But is he going to be able to be not only physical enough, but also have the muscle and the strength to be able to go up against some of those top-notch wide receivers and take the ball away from them or fight the ball away from them for an incompletion? That's going to be the biggest question for me with Greedy Williams. But other than that, I think he's a really good cornerback.
Yeah, and it just blew my mind because I actually found it. So Todd McShay had him go all the way at 20 to the Steelers. Mel Kiper had him go all the way at 29 to the Chiefs. And, like, I just look at it, and the reason why I'm kind of, like, confused by it, because right now, and I'll give you guys a little bit of what I am thinking as I'm trying to put together my last mock draft, I don't have them past 9. Like, for me, I look at it, and I think if the Lions are there, if the board plays out right, I don't see how a team like the Lions necessarily passes him up. And also, like, he could go literally just in the top 10. Here are teams that he could go to. You ready for it?
Yeah.
The Raiders, the Bucks, the Giants, the Lions, the Broncos. Like, all of those. Maybe not the Broncos. They might be outside. But, like, you've got 4, 5, 6, and 8. All could use a cornerback. Now, at 6, we talked about it. Giants could go quarterback over cornerback. But, like, the Raiders could use them. And I'm telling you, if the big thing for them is Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, Josh Allen, which one's left over? Probably will be Quinnen Williams, maybe Josh Allen. Do you want one of those? If it's Josh Allen, Greedy's not going to the Raiders. Josh Allen will be an Oakland Raider because they need some pass rush help. But the Bucks need someone opposite of Vernon Hargrave. You need the Giants, if they don't go quarterback here, they need somebody to help them defend the ball in the backfield. And then the Lions defense is always needed. Like, I feel like the last 3 drafts we've done, the Lions have needed either a safety or a cornerback in all of those drafts. I don't see how he gets past any of those teams to go all the way to 20 or 29. And, like, I know there's some teams that are like, well, I question the big thing was, I question his tackling and his, like, work ethic. And I'm like, do you see his ball skills? Do you see how he, like, watching his film? I said this to Mark. Watching his film, you know who he reminds me of? A guy who was so good, we gave him the nickname Revis Island. Like, he is a guy at the next level that could be so good. He's a lockdown corner. Like, could be a guy where put him on your best guy, he's going to lock him down, like a Josh Norman type player. Where it's like, you're my number 1 corner, you're the lockdown guy. Odell Beckham not going to have a chance against you. Like, that's what he could develop into.
Well, Ricky, the experts. Is there a cornerback that they have?
Apparently, we're NFL draft analyst experts too. So be careful where you're throwing the quotes around, because we're apparently experts.
Sorry, excuse me. The ESPN experts.
Okay.
And you know who I was talking about.
Yeah, I know.
But
just being an asshole.
You're very good at that. Who do they have as being a cornerback above him? Or do they still have him as the number 1, but just not until 20?
You're talking about Kiper and McShay?
Yeah, those guys.
Let's see. I got to pull it up. So, come on. If my tablet would cooperate with me. Let's see. Do either of them have a cornerback taken above him? I don't think so. Tight end, quarterback, This is something, obviously, should look up beforehand, but Brandon throwing curveballs at me like I did earlier in the segment to him. Todd McShay doesn't. Todd McShay has Greedy as the first cornerback off the board at 20. And you've got Kuiper has Jonathan Abrams, who's a safety, not a cornerback, but he's got him above Greedy Williams. Kuiper actually has DeAndre Baker ahead of Greedy Williams, and DeAndre Baker is 27 to the Raiders. Because, I mean, that's another discussion. Like, obviously, I feel like we're both on the side of Greedy, but there is a camp that thinks DeAndre Baker is a better cornerback than Greedy Williams.
DeAndre Baker is a good cornerback, but I still think that Greedy is the best one.
Mm-hmm. For me, it's the ball skills. Like, watching Greedy, it's his ball skills, it's how he attacks the ball. I feel like he's going to develop into an interception machine at the next level. And it's just how he reads short passes, how he anticipates passes. I want that on my team because I don't want a guy that's going to just bat the ball away and give you another shot on offense. I want the guy that's going to take the ball away and give me another shot on offense. And I'm not saying DeAndre Baker is not going to be that, but like even looking at like the measurables, who would you rather have? If you had first pick of the litter of cornerbacks, would you want the guy that's 6'2", 185, or would you want the guy that's 5'11", 193?
5'11", 193 sounds nice, but 6'2" is a guy again. I'd truthfully,
you'd go 5'11". You'd go with the bigger size over the taller.
I would go taller as long as you can add a little bit more meat.
Mm-hmm. Which obviously all these pros, like I take the weight and I fluctuate it a bit because either they got to lean down or they have to add muscle. And at the next level, they're going to do either one or the other. Looking at Lance Zuerlein, who I mentioned before, his kind of pro comparisons, which I think are unfair because it paints a bad light, I want to say, on Greedy. So for Greedy Williams, the guy he compares him to, and I have to look him up to make sure like what he did in the NFL because his name isn't ringing any bells with me. I'll ask you, maybe you remember who he is. Do you remember in Antoine Carson?
Antoine Cason? The name is...
You're right, Cason. I can't read.
The name is familiar. Did he play for the Chargers?
He did. He played for the Chargers from 2008 to 2012. Then he was a year with the Cardinals in 2013. Then he played for the Panthers and the Ravens in 2014. Has been out of the league since.
Yeah.
He had a total of 380 tackles, 2 defensive touchdowns, 16 interceptions throughout his years in the NFL. Whereas DeAndre Baker, guess who Lance Zuerlein compares him to? Asante Samuel. I think DeAndre Baker gets the better pro comparison. I don't really agree with that Cason Greedy Williams comparison. I think people are down on Greedy Williams for, I'm going to say no reason, but obviously people are going to say obviously they have a reason, but I think that people are too down on Greedy and that he is going to make everyone kind of eat their words at the next level. Anything else you want to say either about Greedy or anybody in your 6 through 15?
No.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section. There's a little pause there because I was expecting you to say maybe something, but Brandon surprised me with the nope. This is where you guys, though, come in. Let us know what you think about our 6 through 15. Also about Dwayne Haskins and Greedy Williams and those cornerbacks. Let us know what you think.